Hi, Michelle.
Hey Tess, how are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much for being here with the Color Association, and I'm excited to do this collaboration with Berjé.
Yeah.
So I wanted to start with asking, how does one become a perfumer? There is so much chemistry involved with perfumery, and I think this is an aspect that is often overlooked by people who are unfamiliar with the fragrance industry. Can you elaborate on this?
Yeah, so becoming a perfumer takes passion, many years of training, and I think most importantly, creativity. My training was pretty unique. I worked with awesome perfumers, and they were always willing to share their knowledge with me. And one of my earliest roles in the fragrance industry was as a perfumer's technician. I did that for several years and learned most of what I know through all the compounding and the discussions I had with the perfumers. And eventually I did move up to managing the fragrance lab while pursuing perfumery. And then I started an apprenticeship with a senior perfumer and a technical perfumer a few years after that. And that just consisted of studying and memorizing essential oils and aromatic chemicals, getting lessons on how to make accords. I also learned about the more technical aspects of perfumery, such as reading GCs and analyzing the chemical structure of essential oils. As far as like the chemistry involved in perfumery, there is obviously, we like to say it's part art, part science. And to put it simply, essential oils and aroma chemicals are made up of specific molecules.
Mm-hmm.
And when you start combining these molecules, that's when like the real chemistry starts to sink in. Some have good reactions and some don't.
Hmm.
And if you don't know the chemistry behind why different ingredients smell a certain way when they're blended together, it's pretty difficult to make a formula that will consistently work. But
Hmm. Oh,
that all comes through a combination of experience and training.
right. So, with that being said, was your sense of smell always this strong and developed, or is it something you had to train for over time? Um, do you think you developed the discipline for heightened scent awareness on your own, or was this taught to you, like you were saying, in that process?
Yeah, I think I've always had a strong sense of smell. I always say that it would drive my mom crazy because I would always complain about certain smells that she didn't even notice. I don't know, she might be anosmic. I did have to train to distinguish between the different notes and materials. Um, During my apprenticeship, I was often asked to nose dupe a fragrance. So this basically meant I would have to smell the fragrance, then break it down into a formula just based on its odor. So yeah, there's a lot of training just to get to that point.
Wow, nose dupe. That's not something you hear very often. Um,
Yeah, it's fun because it's challenging. You really have to analyze the fragrance and just keep smelling it, sniffing it, try to pick up different things. So yeah, it was a challenge.
do you often challenge friends and family that you're around to do
Yes,
this?
yeah, yeah, definitely. Well, like I do it with my kids. Like I'll have them close their eyes and like smell a spice and be like, "What is it? What do you think it is?" And or like have them smell like a pepper and stuff
Right.
like that. So it's yeah, it's fun.
That's really nice because I think that sensitivity is something that's pretty lost, I think, day to day, with how fast paced everything is.
Yeah,
So
totally.
very cool. Well, with that, like with your kids, smelling and trying to do nose dupes, can you recall your first scent memory? And if you can, do you remember a color association with that scent memory?
Yeah, my first scent memory, ironically, is crayons. Um, There's actually a funny story behind it if you want to hear it.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So, I have one brother. He's 3.5 years older than me. So when he started going to school, it was basically just me and my mom at home. And I loved being home with her, just doing stuff around the house, running errands. And so when it finally came time for me to leave home and go to school myself, I was definitely not ready to stop spending time with her. So needless to say, the first day of kindergarten was a little stressful.
Mhm.
Um, I can remember walking into the classroom and just seeing kids like around tables with big tubs of crayons. And all I could smell was like that waxy scent of Crayola. I mean, it's stuck in my head.
Mhm.
And I can remember just turning to my mom and being like, I don't want to spend time with these kids. I don't want to hang out with this teacher. I don't want to be here. It was a really tough transition for me. So to this day, like the waxy smell of crayons immediately transports me back to my kindergarten classroom. It's so funny.
Wow. So because that is an extremely distinct smell and it is associated with color, it's kind of
Mhm.
interesting. But it's a kind of stressful memory.
Yeah, yeah.
So, do you have any scent memories that you can recall that are calming growing up or
Yeah.
Mhm.
I mean, just the smell of my mom always wore this perfume, Tresor,
Yeah.
and
Mhm.
smelling that is comforting for me. It just reminds me of her.
That's really nice.
Yeah. It's a
Um,
really pretty floral, powdery fragrance.
nice.
Mhm.
Um, well, talking about crayons and color and coming back to this relationship between color and scent, um, both of these senses are so, visual and scent are so interlinked with the human consciousness. Um, how do you think these two worlds complement each other? You
Mm,
have, like you mentioned that the colors are you've mentioned before in our conversations that colors are often attributed to describing certain scents. um,
yeah.
yeah, so how do you create the mental connection between color descriptors and odors, as well as incorporate those connections into your work?
So we often use colors to describe fragrances, because color does evoke both images and scents for us. I mean,
Hmm.
so like for example, pink can be seen as fruity, brown as earthy, orange as citrus. Um, and perfumers always create something designed to evoke a certain emotion and just craft something that people can actually feel a real connection to. And it's a connection that's so difficult to describe that we often just borrow terms from other areas of experience, like music. Like we have the term accord, like chord, colors and flavors. Um, so yeah, I often just create to evoke images and memories and just a connection of just anything like with scent and color.
Yeah. So you talk about this visual experience of trying to, like it create a visual experience with the
Mhm.
fragrance and with the descriptors of that fragrance. Um, is how do you like what else helps with creating that visual experience? Is like a mood board helpful, or are there themes that you're trying to like kind of describe, or really communicate with those fragrances and those descriptors?
Yeah, creating fragrances, yeah, certainly a visual experience for me. I like working on briefs that are very specific.
Hmm.
I love it when they provide mood boards with colors and images. Um, and every fragrance I create has a goal of transporting that person smelling it to a place or idea I had envisioned in my head.
Hmm.
Um, and like just talking about this with Tom, with like marketing as well. Packaging also plays a huge role in fragrances inspiration. I mean, the full sensory experience of color, texture, aroma, all really need to relate to one another for a successful launch.
Right. Yeah, because it's like fragrance is so personal. Like we have
Mhm.
those memories and associations that trying to find the ways to reach the most consumers in a successful way, I would imagine would be really challenging.
Yeah.
Um, and like with that, like at the Color Association, we are in the business of color forecasting. Is so, you know, with marketing and creating product, is there such a thing as scent forecasting with like trends in scents?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, our marketing team does most of our fragrance trend forecasting,
Mhm.
and they just basically gather information from what's going on in like the worlds of fashion, music, social media, just to kind of get a feel of where customer sentiment and trends are going.
Mhm.
Um, then they usually present all of their findings to the creative team, and then we create fragrances based on what they provide us with, which is often mood boards, videos, and even color palettes. I mean, color, yeah, does play a big part in it.
Right. Are there any trends that you've noticed in scents, like since you've been working for Berjé, that are in reaction to certain events that have happened?
Yeah, I mean, just we um we noticed that trends are circular and patterned. I mean, just like you guys might see that colors come back into fashion, like 70s fashion and like earthy tones. We've seen that with rose.
Oh,
Um,
interesting. Hmm.
yeah, and you can just notice that with like the rose packaging, rose colored packaging we've seen in the recent years. Um, and then now it's like transitioned into rose just being darker, deeper, and
Hmm.
even like more candied, almost like a purple black sort of association. Yeah, that's like a good example of that.
Interesting. Rose.
Yeah.
So, talking about kind of the opposite of the more popular scents that have been trending, can you recall some of the worst things you've ever smelled or more complex scents you've ever smelled?
Yeah, so we once had a project to provide fragrances for a haunted house. They requested a bunch of different types. They were very specific. One of them was actually urine. Uh,
Okay.
I was thankfully not doing perfumery at the time, so I didn't actually have to create it. Uh, However, I did have to smell it being made in the lab, and it was by far the worst thing I've ever smelled in my life.
Wow.
It actually did turn out to be like an orange, deep orange yellow color, like the actual oil. So that's like that color is stuck in my head with that
Right.
fragrance.
It was very authentic.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. I mean, I'm always so amazed at how these very specific scents can be captured with, you know, molecularly without having to use the actual, you know,
Oh yeah, yeah.
thing itself.
We didn't
Blows
have a
my
target sample. Thank God.
mind. Um, well, let's see. I think this is on a completely different note here. If you could have created a fragrance for a historical figure, who would it be?
Um, let's see. So a historical figure. I mean, I would love to work with I like just working in general with just a fun person that's like full of energy and just energetic, creative. Um, and I do love music. So I think Celia Cruz, Celia Cruz would be really cool to work with, and she was like the queen of salsa. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, she was awesome.
What do you think would be like some main note, like some notes that you would add to that fragrance for her?
Well, she was famous for always saying azúcar, which is sugar in Spanish.
Super, yep. Mhm.
So I'm sure some like sweet gourmand notes. Um, I think a fruity floral fragrance would work with her, with like a burst of citrus on top. Yeah, I think that would.
Very cool. That's so
Yeah.
cool. I know it's like each, it's like horoscopes, but with scents. You can
Yeah.
ascribe to each person. Um, so, you came up with these notes for Celia really fast, but how long does it roughly take to create a fragrance? Do the timelines of creating fragrances and developing those change based on the product or client?
Yeah. I say it takes like an average 6 to 12 months for a fragrance to get its final approval. I mean, we're always under timelines with our customers, but there's like a lot of testing and back and forth that happens when developing a fragrance. So yeah, like 6 to 12 months for a fragrance to get its final approval. But I also do work on just like stuff on the side. Like if I was inspired by someone or something one day, I'll work on a fragrance and that can take just months and years even.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
but that's just the fun part of not working under a timeline, like having to meet specific timelines. It's just fun to create just freely.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and so, you say that it takes maybe 6 months to a year and sometimes longer than that. So, how many fragrances are you usually working on at the same time?
Um, I say on an average of 6 to 10 at a time. Yeah.
Wow.
So you have
So,
to. Mm.
does your nose ever switch off?
No, it doesn't necessarily switch off. But my nose does get tired by like the end of the day. Well, it all really depends on what I've been smelling during the day. If I've been smelling like heavy fragrances or like really heady ones, I can get tired quickly. So I just have to go outside and like get a breath of fresh air, just give myself a break and then go back. But it never really like switches off.
So, you always have this very heightened sense of smell you,
Yeah.
uh, throughout the day. Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, it is a very specialized thing. So, it's like a blessing and a curse almost. Um,
Yeah, exactly. Especially like in the New York subway. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. Do you ever break down those scents? Like, there's some that are really obvious, but are you ever in a place like in public and like that, like in a contained space, like a subway or a train, and are consciously breaking down what you're smelling?
Yeah, yeah. Like, I mean, we recently, I guess it was like 2 years ago, we went to Disney and Animal Kingdom has so many different scents just being pumped out, I think. And yeah, I remember being like, I smell green peppers. Where are the green peppers coming from? And yeah, they have so many scents just being pumped out that yeah, I was always like, what's that? What's this? Like trying to figure it out. And they're like, Mom, my kids are like, Mom, just cut it out and enjoy what we're on vacation.
Right. Yeah, like stay in the moment.
Yeah, yeah.
It's funny because it is almost a way of being really mindful, but it's a very different way, I guess, when you're still having to interact with everything around you.
Yeah.
Um, well, coming back to color, if you had to choose a color that's associated with fragrance, is there something that really comes to mind that's a favorite? And can you talk a little bit about that? Like something that really that really, really, you have a lot of fondness for.
Um, yeah, I love blue notes. I think of them as like watery, and often think of the ocean while working on them. I live close to the beach and spend a lot of time there with my family, so it just evokes feelings of family and just great memories.
Mm.
Yeah, we're a beach family.
That's really nice. Yeah, that kind of negates all of the smells of the city.
Yeah.
Um, makes up for all of that. Well, with that, with these ocean scents wafting in, like, what can each of us that maybe don't have as heightened sense of smell, um, or maybe take it for granted, what could each of us do to enhance our appreciation of fragrance?
Um, I think, yeah, I mean, I think that would be a great idea for everyone to just start uh, enhancing their appreciation of fragrance and just smell more. Um, just as like you're cooking, smell the aromas that come as you add each ingredient. Put your nose over the pan or the pot when you're cooking. Uh, Sniff the wine you drink before you sip it. When you're shopping for produce, pick up the pepper, orange, or onion and sniff it. Um, Even like burn more candles for mood enhancement. And when you do sniff something, just close your eyes and think about how it makes you feel. And I think it'll be stored in your memory bank, like
Mm.
smelling like that. Um, I think that's like the simplest way to enhance your appreciation of fragrance. Just like they say, stop and smell the roses.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Well, that sounds lovely. I think, practicing mindfulness and especially with scent is such a wonderful way to end this interview. And I thank you so much for your time and being a woman in science and
Hmm.
just enhancing our lives with scent.
Yeah,
So thanks so much, Michelle.
you're welcome. Yeah, this was great.